So, you think you know who you are, right? You've got a name, you've got a backstory, a personality, a way of doing things. Maybe you're the achiever, maybe you're the rebel, the helper, the fighter, the quiet one, the funny one, right? You've built your life around this identity. But let me ask you, is that really you? Is it? Because in my experience, your identity is a cage, right? It's a survival mask, a set of strategies that you learned to stay safe, to be loved, to avoid pain. And as long as you keep living through that identity, you will never be free. Okay, you won't create what you truly want. You'll keep repeating the same cycles over and over again. And you'll wonder why nothing feels right, no matter how much work you do, no matter how hard you try. Okay, and welcome back. I'm LJ, and that's what today's video is all about. It's about breaking out. Okay, it's about seeing your identity for what it really is, and then finally stepping into your true self, your true nature and purpose. Not the self that you created to survive, the one that you came here to be. Okay, and I learned this the hard way. Okay, because my whole life has been, a category of disasters. Okay, from the moment I was born, right? But there was a time in my life I didn't even know, I couldn't even tell the difference between who I really was and who I'd become to get through life, right? Especially in my teenage years, right? I was the tough guy, right? The fighter, the survivor. I was the guy who would, go through pain. I wore all these armors, these masks. I couldn't show weakness, right? And I needed that identity because I lived in a toxic environment, right? Filled with gangs, with drugs, with just aggression. So it kept me alive, right? And while I was running around with the gangs and the lost in deep addiction, my life was just spiraling out of control, when I was in prison, that identity, it gave me a sense of control, okay? But it also kept me stuck. So when I had enough of living a life of misery, right, and I tried to grow, okay, whether that was starting my first business and, rebuilding my family, because when I got sober, I had a lot of amends to make, right? But, this identity I was dragging this heavy, heavy burden behind me, right? And it came with a bunch of these, unconscious beliefs, things like, I have to do this alone, right? If I'm not strong, I'll be abandoned, right? No one will really see me unless, I'm wearing these masks or I'm performing. Okay, I'm never good enough, right? So I have to prove it, right? I couldn't just be. I had to be something. And even when I got into recovery, right, and I got sober and I got clean and I was turning my life around, so I started helping others. I had unconsciously created a new identity, the inspirational guy, right? The one who turned his life around, the one with the story, the one who had it all figured out. But that was just another identity because it was also bullshit. Because underneath was the same pain. I just didn't know who I really was. Right? Without a role, I didn't know who I was. Okay, and the turning point came, deep into my awakening on this journey of personal development, personal growth. Okay, and it's when I started to really do the inner work. Because for a long time, I was doing the surface level stuff, right? And I was still too scared to go deep. Okay, and when I started doing the inner work, not just to fix myself, but to witness myself, to actually observe the identity I was living through, right? And question, you know, who am I, right? Who am I? And that's when things started to, I would say, change. That's when I started to truly wake up. Okay, because what is an identity, right? Our identity is not who we are. It's who we think we are, right? It's a story, a survival structure that we built in childhood to navigate, our environment. Because when we come, we have to, we try to figure things out, right? So most people confuse the identity with essence. But identity is based on limitation, whereas our essence is based on truth. Okay, now our identity, it it's formed around the moments that we feel grown up, like the pain, the fear, the rejection, the abandonment, humiliation, right? And it builds these unconscious beliefs, okay? Like, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I don't belong, right? And a host of, there's so many that I could choose from, okay? And we live by these beliefs. These beliefs then shape our behaviour, our relationships, our goals, and even in later life, my spirituality. And even your dreams and desires, they will be shaped by your identity, whatever is running at that time. Right? You might think that you want success, love, freedom, okay? But your identity is running the show, right? So what you're really chasing is relief. Relief from shame, relief from scarcity, poverty, fear, right? The wound, guilt, right? Again, it's relief. It's not true. So you've built this life that feels normal to your identity. And even if it's completely misaligned with what your sole purpose is here, what you came this earth to do, because your life is built through structure, right? And what most people don't realize what's actually happening underneath the surface, right? So your life building process is a structure, right? And no matter what you do, it has four parts. Okay, you've got your desired reality. That's what you want to create. You've got your current reality. Where am I now compared to where I want to be? An identity is that internal narrative of who you think you are, and then an action to take now, right? The next aligned move in the direction that you want to go. Okay, and this is always happening, right? Whether consciously or unconsciously, it's just the mechanics of creation. But here's the trap, right? As soon as you start moving towards your desired reality, so you start taking action, right? You start to get a little bit of momentum and success. Your identity starts to feel threatened, right? Because your identity is built for safety, right? Not growth. It's designed to keep you alive, not fulfilled. And as far as your identity is concerned, the fact that you've survived this long, right, it means what I've been doing must be working, so I don't want to change. So when you begin to make these changes, right, and you start to take the new actions, you start to dream bigger, you start to speak your truth, you start to, bridge out, beyond the norm, your identity panics, right? And it's like, oh my God, what's going on here? It literally, believes that if you evolve, it's going to die. And that identity does not want to die. So it will do everything in its power to stay alive. So it's going to throw up resistance, right? It's going to hit you with doubts. It's going to limit in beliefs, right? It's going to activate all the fear, the shame, the confusion, the sabotage. And it's not because you're doing something wrong. Okay, but it's because you're doing something different. And your identity, right? It doesn't trust different. Right? Only trusts familiar, right? Even if familiar means living miserably. Okay, and this is why if you look at your life, right, throughout your life, and there's probably been moments where you've started to do some change, right? Things are starting to get a bit of momentum, right? Whether that's you've started a new job, right? You started a new business. For me, it was getting a bit of sobriety, right? And I would be in the gym for a little bit, see a bit of results, get some benefits, okay? Or even relationships, you get involved with someone. But anyway, you start to get a bit of momentum. You're doing well, right? And then boom, all of a sudden, something happens. And for me, it was always a bender. Something would flip a switch in me, and then I would go out in a bender. I would go and get wrecked on alcohol and drugs, and I would disappear for a day or two, right? And I would sabotage it. Okay, I would sabotage everything, and it would pull me back, right to where I was. Okay, so then the excuses that came, right? The fear kicked in, and and I thought nothing was ever my fault, right? It was all external, But the truth was, it was actually coming from within, because my identity was fighting for survival. It wanted to stay the same. It didn't want change, so it was doing everything in its power to bring me back. Okay, and I thought it was broken, but it's not because I'm broken. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're not lazy, right? You're not unmotivated, right? It's because we're trying to create from a structure that your identity wasn't built to support, right? The identity will always try and resolve the past, right? Whereas your soul came here to create a future. So until you break the pattern, right? Until you consciously build a new structure that's aligned with your truth, you'll keep living in that same loop. Okay? different year, same story. And if you look at your life, I guarantee you watching this video, if you look at your life, you could see so many moments where that's happened. You got so far, and then sabotage came in and it pulled you right back. Okay, because it happens to all of us. And this is why, for me, an important part was super conscious awareness, right? Because that was my key to freedom. The moment that I became aware of my identity, and this is what happens when you become aware of it, you stop being it. Okay, this is when you shift into that super conscious awareness. You become the observer, the intuitive, the creator. And then from this place here, then you can see the structure of your identity, the roles that you play, the beliefs that you hold, the patterns that you keep repeating over and over again. And then once you see it, you're no longer trapped by it, right? And you realize, I'm not the voice, right? I'm not the thought. I'm not this old story, right? And it's not about, you don't have to destroy the identity. You simply have to stop identifying with it. And this is where real freedom comes in. Okay, it truly does, because your identity is structurally incapable of creating your heart desires. So from that place there, then you need to create a new structure, because there's three different types of structure. You've got a stuck structure, you've got a oscillating structure, and you've got a flowing structure. Now, if you think about it, if these were made of wood, right? Now, from wood, you can make a fence, a garden fence, which is stuck. You can make a rocking chair, right, which is oscillating back and forward. Or you could make a wheel, which is flowing, right? So they're made of the same material. It's just that they're built differently. So it's about creating a structure that works for you, because you're not broken. You're not damaged. You just haven't found what works for you. And that's what it is. It's about getting into the flowing structure. Okay, because every time you try to manifest from a place of your old identity, it won't work, right? Or you'll get temporary relief, but you'll sabotage it. Because that identity can't sustain alignment. It always has to seek to resolve itself, not create freely. And this is why the path to uncovering your purpose is not about adding more to yourself. It's about seeing through the illusion of who you think you are, and then reconnecting to who you've always been underneath it all. Pardon me. Remove the baggage, remove the masks. Okay, because it's so, you cannot create the future that you desire if you don't know who you are internally. And because most of your identity is made of parts that were never accepted. Okay, whether that was the angry one, the scared one, the vulnerable one, the emotional one, the one who wanted love, right? You pushed these parts into your shadow, and then you built your identity around not being them. You became strong, so you wouldn't feel weak, right? You became smart, so you wouldn't feel stupid. You became funny, so you wouldn't feel invisible. But these shadows, they never disappear. Okay, they run the show from underneath. So if you want to be free, you have to turn towards those parts. You have to feel to heal. Feel what you've been avoiding. Let the emotions move. Make space for this future version of yourself. And this is where the cage will start to dissolve. Okay, and a practical application, it's about witnessing the identity. Start noticing these unconscious roles that you play. Are you always trying to people please? Are you always trying to fix people? Do you have to know it all? Are you the lone wolf? Are you the responsible one? Are you the black sheep, the victim? Okay, and you ask yourself, who do I become when I feel unsafe? And this is your identity in motion. So you trace the pattern, look back at your life. What are the reoccurring emotional themes? Rejection. Mine was rejection, betrayal, not being seen, right? Not being chosen, not feeling enough. And these themes form your identity. So, journal on them, own them, feel them, heal them. Drop into that super conscious awareness and get back to that innocent child within. Because when you are in that innocent awareness, it's so powerful, because you're not there to judge, fix, or fight your identity. You just become aware of everything that's going on without any resistance. And when you can observe your identity with that innocent curiosity, with no shame, no drama, that's when the transforming begins, because you're perfect just as you are, right? Because the awareness itself is healing. And when we do that, we can start to create from our patterns, not our personality. Because once you see your identity, You don't try to manifest from it, right? Because anything created from a false self will carry the frequency of the false self. And it might look good on the outside, but it won't feel right on the inside. And it won't last. It won't fulfill you. It won't be yours. Right? So you're here to figure out what's your soul pattern. You know, what's the energy that's always been inside underneath all of this? Right? Who am I when I'm not trying to be anything? Okay, and when you can tap into that place, and when you create from that place, that's where alignment lives. That's where your power lives. Okay, and this is why it's so important, right? If you don't know yourself, you'll spend your whole life recreating the past, right? You'll keep building versions of yourself designed to get love, to avoid rejection, to avoid pain, to feel enough, right? Because unconsciously, you're still chasing completion, right? Through other people's approval. You think you're focused on creating your dream life, but you're actually focused on proving your worth, or fixing yourself, or healing a wound, right? On being who you think you have to be in order to be accepted. And because your focus creates your reality, your life becomes a mirror of that distortion. You end up manifesting more of what keeps you stuck, right? Different faces, same pattern. New job, same emptiness. Spiritual language, same identity game. And this is why the ancient, texts, they talk about know thyself, right? It's not just poetic, it's practical. It's the foundation for conscious creation. When you truly know who you are and you live from that authentic truth, everything shifts, right? You stop performing, you stop compensating, you stop wearing masks to keep other people comfortable. Instead, you start to create with clarity. You start attracting people from alignment, right? You start attracting those who truly resonate with the real you because you're finally being real with yourself. Okay, stop lying to yourself. Be your authentic version of you in the every single now moment, right? And here's some questions you can journal on, right? What masks have you been wearing that no longer serve you, right? What part of yourself have you been hiding just to be accepted, right? If no one's watching, who would you be? Because that's the person that you should be every day, right? Authenticity isn't just a value, it's a frequency. And when you live in it, life begins to reflect it. So don't create from personality, create from pattern, from essence, from the part of you that was there before the pain, before the mask, before the world told you who you were supposed to be. That's the version that you were born to create. Okay, because you are not your personality. You are not your past. You're not the story you've been telling yourself. You are consciousness. You are awareness. You are creation in motion. The identity you've been living through, it was never wrong, right? It helped you survive. It kept you safe in a period where you needed to survive and be kept safe. But right now, you don't need it. Right? You didn't come here just to survive. You came here to awaken and thrive, to embody the wholeness, everything that's already deep within you, to create from your soul, right? Not from strategies, to live in freedom, not fear. The journey that you're on right now, your path to your purpose, isn't about becoming someone new. It's about returning to who you were before the world told you what you're supposed to be. Right? The cage is open. You've always had the key. Okay? All that you have to do now is walk out. Be yourself. There's only one you in this world, and the world needs what you have. We need you. Okay, and if this video resonated with you, drop a comment. Tell me what mask are you ready to leave behind. Come on this journey with me. Let's get on the path to uncovering our purpose so we can step into our true nature and purpose. Live in alignment. Help each other grow. And as usual, I love you guys. Have a great day, and I'll catch you on the next one. And just remember, you're not broken. You've just been disconnected, right? And now it's time to reconnect. Reconnect with yourself. Reconnect with others. Reconnect with the world. Okay, have a great day. Love you guys. Another video for you here. And you can subscribe here. Take care. Bye.